Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew and today I want to talk about the 7600 XT 16GB for a little while from AMD. So if you guys like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now I've had this card for, gosh, what is it going on? Five weeks, 6 weeks or whatever. I think it's 5 weeks though. I think it's like 5 weeks. So I've had this card for about 5 weeks. I've put it in the PC off and on. I have it in there right now. Playing some games with it, and I just wanted to kind of give you guys like an overall feeling about or an overall explanation of how I'm feeling about this card after that time, after utilizing it, playing multiple games, checking out like AMD's fluid motion frames, some games with FSR3 in them. And pretty much just the rundown about how I'm actually feeling about this card. When I first got it, overwhelmingly positive for the most part, and still to this day, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. But in terms of how I would recommend this card to somebody, like I don't think I would recommend at this point in like the PC lifespan and PC gaming and with like AI on the horizon, different types of different types of games coming out. We're going to be starting to get more games that are gonna feature like heavier features like ray tracing and all of this other stuff, direct storage, just all these other things. It's very hard for me to recommend anything under a 16 gigabyte VRAM buffer. So that pretty much limits like your options for, at least for me, even at 1080p, to basically like the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte or the 7600 XT 16 gigabyte. um, I'm a real gamer. Like, I love playing video games, and for me to be able to do that and to be able to get that experience, I guess I'm one of those people that would much rather have the VRAM buffer versus not having the VRAM buffer, especially after the experience that I've had. A lot of that, 100%, I chalk that up to just being a newbie in the PC space, wanting to do things my own way, not taking advice. But I mean, the advice that I was getting back then was pretty much like steering me right towards the highest end NVIDIA GPU you could get, and that would have been a 3090. And to be completely honest with you, I mean, like all of us, man, coming from console over to PC, the last thing we want to do is go out and spend $3,000-$4,000 on a PC, not knowing what we're getting ourselves into, because there are all of the freaking misconceptions out there about PC gaming, that really do sit in the back of your mind when you're making that decision, or when you're thinking about it, or when you're, and then we have our own defense mechanisms as console gamers, telling ourselves that, yeah, we don't want to mess with drivers, and we don't want to do this, and we just want a comfortable, convenient experience to sit and play our video games. So I mean, there's a lot of pushback just in our own mind and just in general. And then it doesn't help that every time you watch content about any GPUs, they're always borderline negative. If you know what to look for, if you understand, like the subliminal messaging that comes with the overall PC landscape, is they're always nagging about prices. They're always nagging about this power, that power. They're explaining everything in a way that, like, once you keep listening to it over and over and over again, you'll like probably come to like some sort of conclusion about like, okay, that's what it is. But if you're not willing to go out and really dig your feet in and really learn what's going on, you're going to be just as confused as I was when you open the door to PC gaming. And I feel like that is the biggest hurdle nowadays to everybody wanting to get into PC. The automatic thing that you think, at least I know because I did, was I need more power, I need this, I need that. I want this. This is going to give me that experience. And there's really never any real context to any of that. And when you watch all the video or the reviews and stuff like that, and they show the little graphs and the bars and all of that stuff, you don't get a full picture of how games are actually going to run. You don't get a full picture of how to set up your settings or how to play around with things to make your gaming experience better. You know, because most of them just put it on the ultra settings and then run the benchmarks, and then you look at the frame rate. That is not indicative of how a PC experience is going to run for you. You are going to be able to get in here on games, and you're going to be able to select different levels of like quality presets and stuff. It's almost like on console you get a quality or a performance preset. It's pretty much the same way on PC. You're going to select your resolution. I mean, obviously you're going to buy a card that's built that's in the class for the resolution you have. Obviously, a 4080 or a 7900X or 7900 or the, you know, like 900 series for the AMD cards are going to be like your 4K cards. 7800 versus, you know, 4070 are going to be your 1440p cards, and then your 1080p cards are going to be either your 7600 series or your 4060 series, your 60 series, and that's going to be where you're going to want to try to get into where you're at. If you are buying for 4K experience, you are going to be in the top bracket, and you are going to pay more money for that. And you're not always going to probably be getting the results out of that you want. And yes, you are going to end up relying on DLSS or FSR or XESS or any of those upscaling techniques to get you an experience on those different resolutions. Now, I would say that in my experience so far, 1080p pretty much with these newer cards, with all these newer cards, is pretty much bottlenecked most of the time, unless you're going to spend a pretty decent amount of money for a CPU. So that's going to, you know, up your cost and stuff. I know that this is supposed to be like a 7600 XT video, but it's kind of more along the lines of just everything in general, and why I see, you know, the and it works into my experience with the 7600 XT. I just kind of figured that was a good starting point to get into this, but I wanted to talk about this thing. But once you get into your bracket with your resolution, you know, you either buy a 1080p monitor, a 1440p, or a 4K. Like I was saying, pretty much most of these cards are gonna in some way potentially bottleneck at 1080p. Just due to the fact that they are significantly more powerful than anything we've ever had. And in my opinion, I think they may be just a little bit too much for 1080p. Even these lower end like 7600 XT, these are still like, there are some games that you're gonna require that much power for like 1080p, obviously, but most of these games, this thing destroys 1080p pretty much consistently. And sometimes I find myself with a slight bottleneck with the 5900X on these games. So, but once you move over to 1440p with this card, it's a lot more. It feels a lot more like a 1440p card than anything else. But I do find myself a lot having to use, you know, upscaling or something like that just to get this card to be a 1440p card. And I think that these upscalers really do kind of muddy the water a lot when it comes to GPUs these days, especially at the higher ends. And like if you're, because all right, so my experience with the 7800 XT, that is a really good 1440p card, 16 gigs of VRAM. You don't ever have to worry about running out of VRAM, but this card bottlenecks at 1440p pretty often. So you can run it at 4K. But in my case, because I'm gaming mostly on a 1440p monitor, I'm able to utilize Virtual Super Resolution and just run the game at 4K, have it downsampled to 1440p, get rid of my bottleneck, and then I'm able to get, you know, a pretty decent, you know, usually 60, above 60, a comfortable, let's say a comfortable experience in playing these games. And that's kind of something that I've been learning a lot and putting a lot of focus into, is making my experience comfortable, getting my settings set to where that is. So this week here, I'm going to be testing games a lot more at lower resolutions, and or not lower settings, higher resolution stuff like that. Kind of see just where this 7600 XT really does sit in the market, so that it's easier for me, or better for me, to recommend you the products that are going to get you to where you need to be in terms of PC gaming. And yes, I'm not as qualified as a lot of the other PC guys out there. I'm not, but a lot of the other PC guys out there are just not going out of their way to take the time to really test and explore these experiences to give you a good enough resolve in how you would like to in how you would like to invest your money when it comes to PC gaming. Now, the 7600 XT is kind of an interesting card. It has enough VRAM buffer to run 4K games. And technically, I mean, on your Xbox One games or PS4 generation games, it absolutely does a good job, and it can run a lot of those at a pretty decent frame rate at 4K. Some of these newer games, even, it can do that. But you've got the 128-bit bus that comes along with that card, and that could potentially start giving you issues when it does come to 4K. So I do recommend this card more in like a 1440p class, and utilizing like upscaling and stuff like that to be able to keep this card afloat for a little bit longer. It is an interesting, tricky card. Like, I'm sure that there are certain genres in gaming that this card's going to be just fine for, across the whole gamut of resolutions. Like, it's what, 22 teraflops of power. So I mean, that gives it 10 teraflops more than your average PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. And we've seen what those cards can do, or we've seen what these systems can do. This, like I said, man, this 7600 XT is an interesting card. Definitely hard to recommend in terms of like, this is the one you should get. This is more of the one that, like, look, this fits your budget. This is probably the best bang for your buck in terms of VRAM, AI, AV1 encoding. Like, this card has a lot of features, like a lot of next gen features that are definitely worth the extra money over like the last gen cards. But at the same time, it doesn't have enough oomph to like really set you at a stable 1440p experience. 1080p, yes, but like I said, you might be a little bit bottlenecked, so just make sure you have a little bit stronger CPU. 5800X or above would probably, you know what? Honestly, you could probably pair this just for gaming if that's all you wanted. 5600X 3D, that new one that came out, 5600X 3D, 7600 XT, 16 gigabyte, like a B550 motherboard, 16 to 32 gigs of RAM, 750 power supply. You could probably build this up for about $1,000, maybe a little more than $1,000, and you could have yourself a pretty decent PC that's going to last you a while, and definitely give the consoles a run for their money easily with this 7600 XT. If you want more power and you need something, I do recommend either the 7800 XT or the GRE. I think those two cards are absolutely awesome. They both come with 16 gigs of VRAM, and they both have enough power. If you want to try to entertain the fact of ray tracing, maybe the GRE is probably a little bit better option, just because you have the 80 CUs versus the 60 CUs or whatever that you would be able to utilize for ray tracing. So I think that would probably be a little bit better, because with AMD, the more cores you have, the better ray tracing performance you can get out of those cores. So in theory, you can potentially have like 4070, from what Daniel Owens was saying, you can get 4070 levels of ray tracing, which to me isn't really like a super playable experience, but I mean, it is enough to at least see what it looks like and see if it's something you like. And a fairly stable experience if you lock most of your games at 30 frames per second, or you're using like some of the upscaling and other things to be able to get that to push a little bit higher. I do think that that is somewhat acceptable. I really don't like recommending either one of these GPUs on upscaling or ray tracing, just due to the fact that I don't think that any of these cards, like 4070, 4070 Super, I just don't think that these cards are really built for that type of an experience. So it is hard for me to recommend that. It's hard for me to recommend really anything under a 4080 for ray tracing. To be completely honest with you, I don't even go out of my way to try to recommend a 7900 XTX for ray tracing. I just don't think that the ray tracing experience is where it needs to be for AMD and for anything under a 4080 in the Nvidia stack. Like it's there, you can kind of use it, but it takes away so much performance that I just don't know if it's worth it on a lot of these games. So it is hard to recommend. But in terms of getting yourself set up and getting into PC gaming and actually getting an experience, that's the easy part. It really is. That's the easy part. Getting yourself through the door with a PC with the if you came home, honestly, if you're going from PS5 or Series X and you came home with a 7800 XT build, yeah, you're gonna be very happy. Like you're gonna be very happy. Like you'll look at all of the stuff that you've already been playing, and you'll crank it up and you'll be like, wow, this is really really good. I mean, even setting everything on ultras, it's actually pretty fun, man. It's actually pretty fun, my friends. You come home, you set up your build, you put everything on ultra, and you just play it, and you're so like, see, and here's the thing, man, because you've been playing console for so long, that once you like boom, transition over, you get your controller in your hand, you feel like you're on a console, you're playing the game, and it just looks and feels incredible, and pretty soon you're lost in the experience and you're having fun, and you're getting that experience. The biggest thing is when you get back online and you start looking at things, and don't let yourself fall into that trap when it comes to PC, and I think you'll be just fine. Like I am fairly confident that a 7800 XT will give you a good experience throughout the rest of this generation. Like I'm pretty confident in that. Like that's a pretty decent card, and it will give you enough longevity. And I mean, like, with the fact that like in AMD might be bringing AI upscaling out by the end of this year, and you being able to utilize that on a 7000 series card, that definitely puts the 7000 series card in more of a, like, yeah, dude, definitely buy that. Because whether the internet or anybody wants to admit it, like, it's gonna be pretty dang good. Like, it's gonna work, it's gonna be good. Obviously, there's enough data out there now to where they can get a functional AI upscaler going on AMD, and it will be just fine. It will get rid of all the flickers and all of that stuff. It'll be fine. It'll look just good. You know what I mean? Like, it will deliver the experience that you think you deserve to have, and that's fine. And you'll be able to get that on like a 7800 XT. So I am comfortable. I am a lot more comfortable with recommending the AMD experience at that level, at that $500 entry level. And I think that is a good option for, I mean, that probably puts you at like $1,200 to $1,500 for a decent build to get into PC gaming. And I think that is I think that's an interesting, it's an interesting position that you find yourself in now as a gamer, especially if you're a console gamer, man, and you're just kind of feeling like you're just kind of feeling deflated. You're kind of feeling like, man, gosh, dude, I've been a console gamer for so long. I've dealt with the promises. I've dealt with everything. I mean, all the PlayStation games are going to PC. All of Xbox games are going to PC. And that's just something you have to stop and ask yourself, man, how much more money do you want to commit to the console gaming experience, or are you ready to actually try something new? And that's what it really falls down to, my friends, is, are you ready to transcend, you know, across that plane and try something new that, contrary to, I mean, contrary to what everybody else would say about PC gaming, or all the bickering and nonsense and this is better than that and everything that you hear on the internet, versus, you know, all the things that you tell yourself to tamper your expectation, or to tamper your FOMO for going PC. Yeah, dude, all of the issues that we make up in our own head as console gamers to not go PC, trust and believe, they go away very fast, like extremely fast. Like, you turn on a good build and you play your favorite games and you see the magic, the I can open your eyes. Once you see the magic of what PC really does for the experiences that you really love, those insecurities and those fears and those intimidation factors, they just melt right away. They're like gone immediately, and then you're like, wow, this is cool. But then, you know, you want to put yourself in a position to where you're gonna be strong, to where you're gonna be firm, you know, in your decision. Because once you go out and buy like a 7800 XT or higher type PC, you know, 4070 Super or higher PC, and you're coming from console, like, you're gonna be okay. Like, you don't need 4080s, you don't need 4090s, you don't need like the top of the line stuff to have a significantly better experience than you do on PS5 or Series X. Like, you don't need to do that, really, you don't. My recommendation for people coming to PC, and this is it: start off on the mid range. Go into the mid range. Don't go into the low end. Don't go into the high end. Go into the mid range, and let that be your training wheels. Let that be your training experience. Set aside $1,500 to $1,700. Get into the mid range market and see how you like that experience. That is a pretty decent investment. I'm not going to lie, that is. You are going to invest some money, but then immediately, once you start buying games on Steam, and once you start buying, you know, not having to pay for online gameplay and all of that stuff, you're going to start saving money a lot. Like, you're gonna save a lot of money. You're gonna save a lot of money. You're gonna have a lot more games to play. You can sign up for, you know, Game Pass, you know, PC for only $10 a month, and you can play all of those games. Like, there's so many ways. You get on the Epic Store, they give you a free game every month. They give you free games all the time. You get free games on Amazon. You get, like, there's so many different ways to, like, rebuild your collections on PC, and you get those really good. Steam has amazing sales. You can find those older games really cheap. You can get newer games pretty cheap. Usually we don't even have to pay like a higher price for our games when they hit Steam. They'll be $70 on Xbox. They'll be $60 on Steam. They'll be $50 on Xbox. I just bought Taxi Life. It's like $40 or something on Xbox, and it's $29.99 on Steam. Like, day and date, day one, $29.99. It's $10 cheaper than it is on the Xbox or the PlayStation. Like, they raise the price $10 so the developer actually makes a little bit more money. You know, it's interesting just how incredible PC gaming really is. And once you get into it, once you stick with it, and once you figure it out, and you invest that time and that money and that effort, like, it is going to pay off for you, and you will have a really good experience. But then down the road, when it's time to upgrade, you know, you're going to be back in that spot like, oh gosh, what do I do? And that's, love it or hate it, it's kind of a double-edged sword. The upgrade period is great, but it's also, it can also induce a lot of insecurity or anxiety and stuff like that. And that's why you'll have me always, next generation, I plan to buy, you know, a few of the cards every generation. I am going to stick with AMD. I do like the AMD experience. I think it is really, really good. Nvidia's working on their system right now, getting a better user experience. So hopefully that comes along and makes it easier, because that's sorely needed on the Nvidia side. If they could get that worked out and make that experience significantly better to where it's a lot easier to get in there and understand how to set that up and do that, absolutely. You know, I don't have a problem with NVIDIA. I do think they make some pretty dang good products, but at the same time, you know, you're going to pay a lot more money and you're going to have to learn a lot more to use NVIDIA. Whereas right now you can buy an AMD, which pretty much is centered around gamers. It's like their whole Adrenaline software and everything they've built for the AMD platform is really focused towards gamers. So I do think that it's going to help give you an edge or at least a boost in terms of being able to get into PC gaming and start figuring things out. It's been a lot easier for me. It's been better, and it really has helped me really enjoy the experience, because I was struggling with NVIDIA. I wasn't necessarily always happy with it. I would have much rather just played on my Xbox or my PlayStation. But now it's like AMD is like, oh gosh, I like playing everything on the AMD platform now. And yeah, like it does. It gives me, like, it conflicts me all the time. It's like, oh my gosh, I got both these consoles and I got all these games on them, and that's all I want to do is play on the PC. So, all right, my friends, I'm done talking your ears off. Thank you for watching. I hope this video helps, and we will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.